use cases, multiple applications, but ultimately you've got this one big set of really important data.
Hello and welcome to week 5 of our Fireside Chats. I'm joined again by my colleague Mark Smith. This week, Mark, we're talking about centralisation of data and digital archives. I guess we're in that world of multiple manufacturers, multiple vendors, multiple systems, I guess diverse management platforms, and centralising and bringing data into a sort of a core actually reduces the complexity. And at the moment, for most customers, the thing that sort of motivates them is simplification, simplifying the platform, simplifying the operation, putting more time back into their staff, and reducing the complexity of ownership. How do we apply that to digital preservation?
Well, a term we used to use, terms like data lake, building everything together into one accessible pool of storage makes sense. Multiple use cases, multiple applications, but ultimately you've got this one big set of really important data. We've seen lots of customers embark on projects around digital preservation, building their central repository for their digital preservation platform and build it themselves. So by white box servers and open source software, and to a degree some of them do a really good job. However, as scale starts to come into the equation, it becomes harder and harder to maintain multiple points of failure, for instance inside a repository where you've got multiple servers and different software stacks and switching and connectivity, and then you've got the management overhead on top. So we've definitely seen, and I would say in the past sort of 3 years, we've seen quite a rapid change in organisations moving from sort of self-built, self-designed solutions, using, following best practices and some of the guidelines maybe from the Digital Preservation Coalition around how they store stuff, but moving away from home-built or I guess commodity solutions to more enterprise-grade solutions, just because as those repositories grow, the management of them starts to grow, and using enterprise-based solutions, typically someone's thought about how they're managed, thought about how they're scaled, thought about how the underlying technology integrates with each other. And so a move to an enterprise-based solution, while it may notionally appear like it costs more, I think the overall cost of ownership is typically less than a home-built solution, because you're building a home-built solution with all these different parts that you're responsible for. If you go enterprise, there becomes a manufacturer that's responsible for the overall integrity and interoperability of all of those components, and puts a management layer on top that allows you to see how it's all functioning, and also giving you reporting about any failures or errors in the hardware. Because ultimately we don't want anything to impact the integrity of our data.
I was going to mention as well, actually, whilst we're talking about digital preservation, that simplification in IT is an important factor for any type of solution. And I guess, as you mentioned, when it comes to the sort of the tier 1 manufacturers, whether it be backup or other solutions, start to integrate into centralised management as well. So you have an overarching platform, digital preservation, traditional archive, storage, other elements as well, all come together for a simplified IT environment.
Yeah, I mean, the preservation platform is part of your enterprise IT. It's really important data, so there's no reason why it shouldn't be part of your enterprise IT estate. So that the same team that manages your virtual farm, your end user compute, your users' data can also see and at least manage, not necessarily alter or change, because we put lots of controls around who can change things inside a preservation platform. We make sure that no one can delete data, the concept of 2 keys to turn anything on or off, so 2 different people authenticating inside a platform to make sure that no significant changes can be made by one person. And of course, because that data's in one place, or one repository, and maybe multiple copies in a repository, we need to make sure that's really protected, because someone making a mistake in there or someone doing some sort of malicious action in there can affect some data that maybe you can't reproduce and you can't retrieve from anywhere else. So enterprise platforms and bringing it all together in one place and making sure that you have the right tools and the right management tools, but also you've got the right security tools and the right levels of, I guess, authentication and access rights and things like that, is really important. And you get those type of features in an enterprise solution without a doubt.
And I guess the final additional benefit, we talked a lot about the sort of almost like the logical layer, but I guess just a sort of hardware layer. If something fails, there's backup in the systems. There's sort of redundancy built into the platforms as well, and by centralising it, it's more control, more sort of ease of management of that.
Yeah, we used to, in the old days with disk drives, we used to have RAID, but these days we have more Enrager encoding, or we have smart data protection that doesn't really have redundant drives, and the data's spread across as many drives as it can be to make the systems as resilient as possible. And we design systems that have minimum sort of mean time to data loss, but also mean time to failure as well. So we can understand how those systems are going to last and how those systems are going to perform over a long period of time. We can make sure that we know that if you have 1,000 disk drives, you're going to have more failures than a customer that has 100, just because you have more. So we make sure the systems are resilient enough to allow for the sheer scale of them. So a customer with 1,000 disk drives needs to have a slightly different level of redundancy and a slightly different level of, I guess, protection than a customer that might only have 5 or 6. And the best scenario of all, and we have multiple customers who experience this, is when the service engineer knocks on the door and says, "I've come to replace 10 drives in your solution that's got 10,000 drives in it because your system has alerted me that it's had a problem," and the guy turns up and changes the drives, or a box turns up and you change the drives if you're happy to do it. But a system that reports home to the manufacturer, orders its spare parts, and does all of that seamlessly so that it takes that management burden away from you. And it's really not unusual to see one person, one storage admin, if you like, managing a store that could have 10, 20 petabytes of data inside it, which is something we just couldn't do 5 years ago. The management burden for 10 petabytes would have been massive, but these days the systems are much, much smarter.
That's fantastic. So really clear, well-articulated story of why centralising data is a good thing, and bringing systems into a consolidation or consolidated management platform is a good thing.
The low-touch nature of modern storage systems, where you'll do far more with far fewer people, but you'll also get a much better result because someone else, the manufacturer, spent a lot of time making sure that it all works together, that it's all guaranteed to work together, and if something doesn't work, they'll just come and fix it.
Thank you, Mark. That's fantastic.
Cheers,
and thank you for watching. We look forward to telling you some more next week. Thank you.